Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. If one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord Bore, which is worthy of description of the Lord, who is within the heart of everyone, is very pleased. Purport. In his various incarnations, the Lord appears, acts, and leaves behind him a narrative history which is as transcendental as he himself. Every one of us is fond of hearing some wonderful narration, but most stories are neither auspicious nor worth hearing because they are of inferior quality of material nature. Every living entity is of superior quality, spirit soul, and nothing material can be auspicious for him. Intelligent persons should therefore hear personally and cause others to hear the descriptive narrations of the Lord's activities, for that will destroy the pangs of material existence. Out of his causeless mercy only, the Lord comes to his earth, this earth, and leaves behind his merciful activities so that the devotees may derive transcendental benefit. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ya eva metam harimedaso harehe katham subhadram kathaniyamainaha shrunvita bhaktya shravayeta voshatim janardanosyasu rudi prasidati. Translation we will chant again. It's very auspicious. If one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord Bore, which is worthy of description, the Lord, who is within the heart of everyone, is very pleased. Let's chant the invocation and then we will start discussion. Om Adnyantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Madamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Saavadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jamalambitu Kanakavadhato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalayataksho Vishwambharo Dvijabharo Yugadharmapalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karana Avataro Yantah Pravishya Mama Chamimam Prasuktam Sanjeevayatya Akhila Shakti Dharaswadhamna Anyamscha Hasta Charana Shravana Tvagadin Pranandamo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam. So, thank you everyone for joining today's discussion. I think the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis and all the Vaishnavas who are there online. So, this is a very interesting um, aspect of our Vedic literature, that every time when there is a pastime discussed, or when there is a stuti, or we praise the Lord, it's called stotra. And we hear some of the verses towards the end. It is called Phalashruti. Phala means fruit. Shruti means hear. After hearing, what are the fruits we get? So this particular verse is the fruit of Lord Varahadev's pastimes we have been listening to for last few days. How many of you have visited Balaji temple? Tirupati Balaji? Yeah. I'm sure you all had been to Varahadev's temple towards the left hand side. First you have to go to Varahadev's temple, take his darshan, and then you walk towards the actual long queue for Balaji's darshan. It's very amazing. When you are coming back from Varahadev's temple, what you hear is all the Vedic hymns, Purusha Sukta, Narayan Sukta, Shri Sukta, and very beautifully they are narrating on that loudspeaker. If the person has the right mood, they will find that lot more soothing and lot more melodious than any other music in the world. It's so beautifully recited. If you go there, please make sure that you listen, wait for 5-10 minutes after coming back from or going towards Varadev's darshan, and after coming back, you can sit there for a few minutes and listen to that beautiful recitations. It's amazing. So that will set the mood for Phalashruti and the eagerness to see the Lord Balaji in that long queue. We can meditate and chant there. So this is the time of Sankirtan, book distribution, preaching. This is enliven ourselves with a mood of giving this mercy, what we have been receiving to others. And this is the right verse for that, because the translation emphasis is, if one hears and describes this auspicious narration with devotion, Lord Janardhan, who is in the heart, becomes immediately pleased. And all of us have experienced several times that whenever there is any disturbance, material disturbance, we come to the Lord, say our prayers, very personal prayers, and somehow or the other we receive some kind of solace, some kind of peace in our heart. And I'm sure all of us have experienced this. Otherwise, we would not be sitting here. Definitely, there is some reciprocation from the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord appears, acts, and leaves behind a history which is as transcendental as he himself. So, as we all know, that Srimad Bhagavatam is the body of the Lord, and that these all narrations we are, when we are listening, we are actually directly associating with him. Now the next part comes is, we love stories, but the problem is we choose the wrong ones. How many people find that they are tremendously benefited by watching a movie for a very long time? Very few, correct? Maybe there are some movies which will give us some kind of material insight of how to act, what to do, but it's more of an entertainment level. Almost 99%. 1% we may get something out of it. And every living being likes different types of stories. Some like horror movies, some like some drama, some like different various types. You all can analyze whichever type of story and movies and dramas and all we like. Nowadays, in this world of AI and different types of social media and Netflix and I don't know what type of gossips people are interested in. But these stories are material, temporary, agitating, and unfulfilling. So why these stories cannot satisfy the soul? Because it's a Falashruti verse, so let's make that more of a discussion or interaction rather than just one person talking. And so why these material stories cannot satisfy the soul? Yes, Srinivasulu. Yes, of course. Anyone else? Yeah, because those are all related to somewhere the mix of misery and relief from miseries. Correct? It is not connected, it is not connecting to the higher consciousness. If our nature is of superior energy, paraprakriti, marginal potency, and if we are trying to connect to inferior energy with these material stories, it cannot fulfill, it cannot uplift us. And that's the main problem. Example is, the famous example in ISKCON is fish out of water. Or it's against the nature of the soul. If we compel a bird to crawl or to walk for a long time, the bird will be uncomfortable, uneasy. Fish, we cannot keep the fish out of the water. We have to put that in water. And another brilliant example our Vedic literature gives is a drop of water will be stable when it goes back in ocean, right? Wherever it is. But the final destination of the drop of water is ocean. And that's where the direction is. It goes in a river, and from a river meets the ocean. What is the direction of the fire? Upwards. Why? Because who is the origin of the fire? Vishnu. But in the Panchamahabhuta, it is sun. So it is going towards sun. Right? So every element, even the material element, if we try to analyze, it has some direction. It goes towards its own direction. Soul has its direction. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says, going back to Godhead, because it's a God particle. The soul has to go back to this original destination. If it is not in the right destination, in a right position, it will be uncomfortable. It will be uneasy all the time. And this is the purpose of today's verse. The Lord's mercy in providing spiritual narrations, it will give us some kind of happiness, some solace, some peace. So out of compassion, Lord descends and enacts pastime so we can hear them. These become windows into the spiritual world. As Bhurijan Prabhu in his book Japa, he says that whenever we chant in front of the Lord or in Dham, and if we are chanting with right mood, we can feel the connection. The chanting becomes very potent. Some experience the person will get that there is a purification happening. Why? Because the layer becomes thinner. It's a window to the spiritual world. And that's what these pastimes are. Otherwise, we try to seek the happiness, people go in political debates, celebrity gossip, and remain dissatisfied. But the same entertainment, the education and everything we can get completed when we connect ourselves to the Lord's pastimes. And the essential ingredient here is, what's the word we were discussing? Very important word here in today's words. Essential ingredient is bhaktya, with devotion. Yeah? This means the Shrunvita Bhaktya Shravayeta Voshatim, third line here, listening to the pastimes, Shrunvita Bhaktya, with devotion, and then describing it to others. What's the verse immediately comes to our mind about the bhakta? Machita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Lord says, my devotees, Radha Gokulananda Bhagwan ki jai, Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Manthai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Machita madgata, in the heart of a devotee, I am there. But everything they think of is me. Prana. Bodhayanta parasparam. And they are discussing bodhayanta about me among themselves. Kathayantascha mam nityam. They are discussing what? Katha mam nityam. About him. Nitya. Regularly, constantly. About whom? About the Lord. Tushyanti cha. And they are satisfied. Ramanti cha. They are engrossed in that. So, that's what the devotees are. And that's why bhaktya with devotion is the important words. Then, which means what? The faith, shraddha. Yeah. I will get something when I am connected to. And as our Vedic literature says, that Purusha is a giver. He gives. Who is the supreme Purusha? Who is the only Purusha? The ultimate Purusha is the Lord himself. Everyone else is Prakriti, the feminine. He's there seeking all the time. We all are of feminine nature because we are seeking all the time. And that's the Falashruti, that what am I going to get when I am connected to that Purusha? And that's today's verse, with that mood of service, Seva Bhava. Of course, when you are seeking something, the most important aspect comes is humility. Dina. I'm requesting. It's the mood of prayer. Hearing with wrong attitude, what will happen? Because it's a Falashruti verse, we are discussing the positive side and the negative side at the same time. When we are hearing this with wrong attitude, incorrect attitude, it will become ritual. We will not get that mood in a proper way. It will become more of an academic type of, and then analysis or paralysis by analysis, unnecessary analysis of everything, and then I agree, disagree. It becomes a dry discussion, and it becomes eventually it's just a cheap entertainment. It is not the purpose of the Lord's pastime. Is the purification. That will not happen. But on the other hand, the first part is hearing with devotion, bhaktya, it's transformational. Twofold instructions here to Israel. Shrunvita bhaktya, shravayeta voshatim. Shravanam means we are hearing, listening. And then second thing is kirtanam, telling it to others, describing it to others. So, 9 processes of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, which starts with first 2, Shravanam and Kirtanam, and why both processes are needed. Why do we need to Shravana all the time? Why do we need to hear all the time? Because it purifies the heart, correct? And why do we need to preach it to others? There are 2 benefits of that. One is others get benefited. They get Ajnat Sukriti, they get some kind of insight of the Vedic literature, everything. That's the aspect of preaching. But more important is it develops the conviction in our heart. And when there is a conviction in our heart, there is a realization. Correct? So, important verse, Srila Prabhupada always quoted so many times is, and he started that with the statement, we want our devotees to be first class Brahman. He said that, right? What was the background of that? It is there in Vedanta Sutra, that verse with different grammatical details. It is there in Skanda Puran, in many Vedic literature. And that famous verse is, Janmana jayate shudraha samskarat bhavet dvija. Or in another literature, dvija uchyate. Vedabhyasa pathet vipra brahma janati iti brahmanyam. So what that verse means? Janmana jayate shudraha. By birth, everyone is fourth class, Shudra. Samskarat dvija uchyate, or samskarat bhavet dvija. What are the samskaras? The Vedic samskaras. We have Garbhadan samskar and many other samskar. First is Vivaha samskar. Before that, other samskaras there, Upanayan samskar, and many others. When we go through that samskaras, the person comes to a point that spiritual master accepts him or her as a disciple, and the second part comes is spiritual master gives the sacred thread that now you are serious, you come to the next stage of Dvija, twice born, Dvija Uchyate. Third part is the person is supposed to study the Vedic literature very sincerely, and that's what we have been discussing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So Vedabhyasa Pathet Vipra, that what happens that the person becomes scholar, the third stage. First is Shudra, second is Dvija, third is Vipra, which is a scholar who can discuss the Vedic literature with wider audience. When the person is a scholar, he has understood the importance of Vedic literature, he has been studying, he or she, then the next stage comes is performing the austerities. What are the austerities? That preaching that knowledge, at the same time following the practices of what we are learning, because there is reasoning for everything in Vedic literature. When we buy a car, how to drive that car is the basic part, but how to use all the facilities in the car are given by whom? By the manufacturer. So we are supposed to follow the manufacturer's literature. With our senses, we know how to follow the basics of this material world, but the reasoning of everything is available in the Vedic literature, and that is the realization, following the penances and austerities. When that happens, the person realizes the knowledge, and that is Brahma Jnana. Brahma Janati iti Brahmanyam. And that's the first class person. Shudra to first class person. And that's the important part of human existence. Speaking, sharing, it nourishes the realizations. Brahma Jnana. When you teach someone something spiritual, we understand it better. So, let's come to the point of discussion. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, listening to the Vedic literature, has anyone, what is the experience anyone has that changed the situation, the scenario? Is there anyone who can share? Because of listening Srimad Bhagavatam, there was a situation we have used the knowledge from Vedic literature, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from Bhagavad Gita, and that changed the perspective of the situation. Is there anyone has any experience? Or shall I share mine and then? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Fatih.
I think more than the knowledge thing, it kind of, I feel that for me it's kind of transformed just the way I see things, in the way I feel about things and see everything around me. That seems more like reality, and everything else seems a bit illusory. So when you are put in situations where you could, find it hard to tolerate, things don't matter so much anymore, because you've been hearing all these pastimes of Krishna, you've been absorbed in Bhagavatam, and it seems to work like some magic. And so I don't know about particular situations, but the whole overall dealing with this material world just seems a lot, you're just peaceful and happy, you've got this internal happiness.
Very true. It gives the sense of temporariness of this material life. Yeah. I will tell you an example. My own personal experience. We don't have a lot of time. But I'll try to be quick. My daughter is a doctor. She works in the medical world. She has just passed out a couple of years back. Works in Watford General. And once she was giving some presentations when the people die, then they have to have some kind of discussion among doctors that what was the reason, and they have to go through the case study and all that stuff. She was in a stroke ward and she was giving the presentation, and her juniors gave their case study to her, and she presented, and some of her very senior consultant, he was a bit nasty, he was a bit obnoxious to her, and he said, no, it's your responsibility, this is not acceptable, and this and that, and he was yelling and shouting and all. And she came back home and said, I'm not happy with this is ridiculous, why that person was shouting at me. It is somebody else's case study, and something else happened, and the person died because of, he was an old man, and he's yelling at me. And we were at the dinner table, and the whole atmosphere at home was not very, very nice, not very encouraging. So I said, look at yourself as a third person, which our Bhagavatam tells us, our Vedic literature tells us. Where you at fault, you have to be 100% honest and think of yourself where you at fault. And she said, no. Only thing is, probably I might not have presented the case study the consultant wanted. So I said, that is other people's expectation, but it's not your fault. So in a bigger scenario, when there are 10 people sitting, and when you are looking at yourself as a third person, what do you think that situation is? And she said, it's just for time being, it's just temporary. After 1 month, everyone will be forgotten, everyone has forgotten what happened, and things will continue. I said, that's what the nature is of this whole material world. I said, and then second thing is, what's the impression that consultant has left on others, that they will be a lot more careful because that person is obnoxious. Unnecessary, he was shouting at people, he was venting out his frustration on you or someone else. So as a third person, when you look at the situation, what will happen? What do you think of it? I said, yeah, it doesn't matter much. It's all very superficial. what that situation is temporary and it doesn't matter much. She's saying that, and I was trying to tell her that it is temporary. Where it came from? It came from this literature, it came from this understanding that we don't have to take things very seriously. Once Krupamaya Prabhu was telling about His Grace Tribhuvannath Prabhu, that he was in his last days, and I think probably Krupamaya Prabhu or some very, very senior Vaishnava, he went there and asked Tribhuvannath Prabhu, so what do you think? What's your advice? What do you what's your realization that you want to tell us? And he just smiled very pleasantly, very peacefully, and he said, don't take this illusion too seriously. There is nothing serious about this. When the person who is about to leave this world, he is that happy and very peaceful, and he's saying this, doesn't it say something very profound, very deep, very powerful? Amazing, isn't it? And who is saying this? Tribhuvannath Prabhu, very, very amazing, great personality, the great preacher. So, Asyashu Hridhi Prasidati. Let's emphasize the phrase, which is towards the end. We'll finish it in a couple of minutes, in a minute. Lord becomes very pleased quickly in the heart when we discuss these pastimes. The heart becomes peaceful. Material desire gets reduced. Sins are destroyed because we are directly involved in the devotional activity. Intelligence becomes sharpened. We get the right understanding of how to deal with the situation. Our faith, our conviction increases, and we feel joyful at home, at heart. And the pleasure of the Lord is the engine for all the advancements, and it's the relief from material sufferings. Conclusion, the summary is, Lord's narrations are spiritually potent. Material stories cannot satisfy the soul. Whatever Netflix or Amazon Prime or anything is giving us, that's not going to help. Hearing and sharing with devotion pleases the Lord in the heart of the person who is narrating and person who is listening. So preaching is very important. That gives joy to everyone. And this is the easiest and the most joyful process of self-realization. So we'll stop here after this summary. Are there any questions or comments? Or anything to share? Nothing? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.